各位贵宾，欢迎您莅临2020永续城市线上高峰论坛主论坛的开幕仪式。Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the 2020 City Forum today. I'm today's MC, Eva Zhang. I welcome you to all today's forum with my gratitude. First, let's now introduce our honorable guest as the first row. 首先，我们要为您介绍今天来到现场的几位贵宾。首先，第一位呢是桃园市的副秘书长邱俊明副秘书长。Please welcome the Deputy Secretary General of Taoyuan City. 第二位为您介绍国际气候发展智库理事长，同时也是行政院能源及减碳办公室的副执行长林子伦林副执行长，欢迎您。Welcome the President of ICDI and Deputy Chief Executive Office in Energy in Executive Yuan 林子伦。接下来为您介绍我们的贵宾是我们的法国在台协会的副主任戴宁志先生，欢迎您。The Deputy Director of the French Office in Taipei, Mr. Guillaume Delvalle, welcome. 第四位是法国的格勒诺布尔大都会区大使 Pascal Viol 先生，欢迎您。Welcome the Ambassador of the Quebec Metropole. Welcome. 接下来我们要欢迎荷兰在台办事处的经济顾问 Diederik van der Dom. Let's welcome the Senior Economic Advisor of Netherlands Office Taipei. Welcome. 接下来请欢迎我们的丹麦商务办事处资深商务顾问徐素萍女士，欢迎您。Let's welcome the Senior Commercial Advisor of the Trade Council of the Denmark in Taipei. 继续，我们要欢迎的是欧洲在台商务协会 ECCT 的常务理事黎森。Let's welcome Executive Director of ECCT, Mr. Paul Linson. Welcome. Due to the time limit, we cannot introduce all the guests one by one, but still we should like to express my gratitude to all of you. Thank you. 那么首先，我们非常的荣幸要先来邀请我们的国际气候发展智库理事长，同时也是行政院能源及减碳办公室的副执行长林副执行长来为我们致辞。At first, welcome Dr. Lin to give us the opening remarks.
Our Deputy Director of Taoyuan City, Mr. Chou Junmin, and some international friends, and distinguished guests, and colleagues and friends, and ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. This is a very difficult time for the world. I think due to the COVID-19, we cannot actually receive many guests from overseas as usual. However, it's also an opportunity for us to think how to make the world more resilient and build a better future. I participate in this Sustainable City Forum since 2016, I think roughly 4 years ago. And every year I see the discussion and partner are growing bigger and bigger. And this year, I think it's great. The Taoyuan City become the host city, and with 4 international organizations, including ICLEI, CityNet, IGES, EBRD, and many public and private partners work together. I believe through this joint effort, local action can be the major initiative to drive the sustainability transition. To make the sustainable city possible, so I know the ICDI and collaborate with many international organizations, published the Global Smart Solution Report last year. It has become an important publication since for city experience sharing. This year, and I guess many people have the report, the 2020 edition at hand. The main thing is resilient, inclusive, and smart sustainable city, which includes a 4-topic: resilient city, circular economy, low emission development, inclusive, and the social innovation. There are 19 city cases from all over the world, and the 6 cities of them are awarded the best practice. I think cities now and local government are leading the fight against the climate change. We believe This forum and report will be a great platform for city to learn from each other and enhance our ambitions. So once again, I thank all the partners and organizers to make this forum possible. I wish the forum today very successful. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Lin, your inspiring speech. Next, we will connect to Secretary General of ICLEI, Glenn Van Begin, for our opening remarks. 接下来呢，我们要掌声热烈欢迎 ICLEI 的秘书长 Gino Van Begin 为我们来说几句话。
Honorable Mr. Chu, Deputy Secretary General of Taiwan City. Dear Mr. Lin, President of the ICDI. Dear Mrs. Tsai, Director of the ICLEI Kaohsiung Capacity Center. Distinguished speakers, dear ICLEI members, dear participants, ladies and gentlemen. It is my honor to welcome you to the 2020 Sustainable City Forum and to deliver opening remarks. First of all, I would like to express my thanks to the organizers, Taiwan City Government, ICDI, and ICLEI Kaohsiung Capacity Center for their warm invitation. And I would have wished to be here in person and to enjoy the smart Taiwan cities and your local hospitality. On behalf of ICLEI Local Governance for Sustainability, I want to congratulate and thank Taiwan City Government for taking the leadership in convening this important forum and drawing global attention to the smart solutions for cities worldwide with ICDI and the ICLEI network. The COVID-19 pandemic that we are facing now is a severe, immediate and worst public health and economic crisis in this century. Another threat to mankind is the increasingly ongoing climate change. All economic policy decisions that are made now will affect in a critical way and on a long term the climate trajectory. In the post-COVID-19 era, it will be essential to build back better and to restore economic activity, leaving the old patterns of environmental degradation and inequality behind us. Since 2010, ICLEI has been supporting its 1,750 members and network cities with activities to promote local resilience, sustainable urban development, and an increased understanding of disaster risks in their respective localities. We promote resilient development strategies as a main pillar of sustainable development. On the path of building capacities to adapt and mitigate the climate crisis, we value the power of collaborations that are driven by bottom-up approaches. Through dialogues and knowledge sharing, like today's forum, we have a valuable opportunity to learn from our peers, to identify priorities, and to work together on important issues in cities around the world. To respond to the COVID-19 pandemic, we at ICLEI have been collecting and sharing information and knowledge among our members on the measures taken. We created multiple networking opportunities and have been providing technical support to local governments. We have found that ICLEI cities are taking the lead in creating responses and recovery plans to build back better. Smart solutions are now more important than ever, and all stakeholders should work together to build back better through green, low-emission, and nature-based solutions that promote equity and social justice. In the journey to a resilient and sustainable smart future, we invite and support partnerships between cities, public and private sector, as well as civil society to bring about transformative actions. With these words, I wish this main forum all success, and I wish you all rewarding deliberations. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Mr. Gino. 下一位，我们要欢迎来自 CityNet 组织的秘书长 Vijay Jagannathan 为我们致辞。Next is welcome Secretary General of CityNet Vijay Jagannathan for opening remarks. Mr. Vijay, can you hear me?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, please.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Deputy Secretary General Chiu Jun-ming, distinguished guests. I also see my friend Mori-san on the screen. Greetings to you too after a long time, but virtually. On behalf of CityNet, I'd like to thank the organizers for inviting us to participate in this important event. In particular, I was very interested to hear about the Global Smart Solutions report, which I'm sure has a lot of knowledge, which is exactly the kind of information our members need to tackle the big issues they have been facing before, during, and also after the COVID-19 outbreak. So this is an important session, and we do look forward very much to having an active engagement by Taiwan City in our various activities. Just as a word of introduction, CityNet is a network of cities and partner agencies in the Asia-Pacific region. It was set up by UNESCAP more than 35 years ago, and currently the CityNet is hosted by Seoul Metropolitan Government in Seoul, and we also have Yokohama Project Office. Yokohama used to be the host of CityNet for many years before that. So we have partners both from the more advanced countries as well as others who are still facing what I would call the emerging countries of Asia. But the important thing is that this is a network promoting city-to-city partnerships and knowledge sharing. And so our members are always interested to hear and learn more about how cities like Taiwan and others have done so well in terms of not only managing the COVID epidemic, but also in ensuring a very quick recovery. So let me now begin by, can we go to the next slide, please? So what lessons have we learned from COVID-19 to make our cities and communities better? And I propose to talk about three things. One is the central role of cities. Second is to give some examples from Korea, Ulaanbaatar, and Hyderabad in India. And third, the lessons for what I would call the green-blue agenda, that is agenda promoting both low emissions development as well as promoting resilience to climate change. Next slide, please. Now, what we have found really inspiring in Seoul, of course, is the way they tackle the COVID epidemic, just as your cities in Taiwan have done the same thing. But behind that, there is a much bigger story of how Seoul has also been able to reduce the low emissions, the emissions to a low emission development pathway by basically decreasing energy consumption and increasing the efficiency. And this is a remarkable achievement over the last several years, brought about also by using digital data to effectively track how the city is doing in terms of its carbon emissions. It has also led to developments in terms of innovations in the way electricity is managed, so that the focus is not only energy efficiency, but also trying to bring about more of green electricity through which they're able to improve the overall carbon footprint of the city. Next slide, please. Now, one thing which is common among all our cities is about traffic. We have enormous problems in all our cities about not only because of the crisis of public transportation, but also because of the growing middle class, which is buying more cars, more two-wheelers, and congesting the roads and creating a lot of air pollution. So one of the big challenges is how do we come up with mobility solutions? And this is where all our members very much look forward to the experiences of the more advanced cities on how they manage their traffic. Next, please. And this includes not only transportation, but looking horizontally across other sectors which have a very close relationship with transportation, such as energy and water. And also to bring in proper accounting of how greenhouse gases are generated and how they're managed. Next slide, please. So the most important thing is systemic thinking for low carbon city development. and to come up with city-level climate actions that lead to measurable impacts in terms of reduction of GHG, actually total elimination of GHG by 2050. And this is done by each city identifying its pathway on how to achieve the impacts with early peaking. And once that is done, then backcasting the investments for desired sector-specific outputs. Now, the key thing which has come up again and which appears to have been a very important factor in tackling COVID-19 is also how to establish a rigorous, objective, open access monitoring, reporting, and verification system using state-of-the-art technologies. And this is where there would be a lot of interest also in getting the expertise and advice from cities like yourselves to help us achieve these goals. Next slide, please. I'm giving two quick examples. One is from Ulaanbaatar city as a smart city, and also Ulaanbaatar has got the ambitions of becoming a low carbon city. And so what you see are three pictures on the top and how the city envisions it becoming a low carbon city at the bottom. The key issue here, as in many other cities of Asia Pacific region, is that there is an enormous shortage of affordable housing. So the picture you see on the right is of the informal settlements known as the GERs. And the idea there is how do you convert those informal settlements, which right now are major emitters of carbon because people are using stoves which generate a huge amount of pollution and carbon dioxide. How do you convert it into affordable, clean housing? The other two pictures show the rest of the city, where also one of the big challenges is many, many apartments which were built more than 60 years ago when Mongolia was received a lot of aid from what was then the Soviet Union. And those what are called panel buildings are also very poor insulators of energy, and a huge amount of energy wastage takes place, which also means that in the very long winter months, people find the apartment so hot that they even have to leave the windows open, again creating a lot of pollution as well as carbon dioxide. Next slide, please. Now, the air pollution is the other issue which is dominating many of our cities. And here's an example from Ulaanbaatar again, showing the major areas of air pollution. And what you see is that the air pollution is particularly acute where the poor live. That is on the outside the central business district of the city. Next slide, please. Now, I'm giving another example from India, the city of Hyderabad, which has about 8 million population, to also illustrate the big challenges on water. What you see on the right side is the city of Hyderabad with its water resources. And what you see on the left side, my left side, is with the water resources. On the right side, you see the same map with the way the entire area has become heavily populated. And what has often happened is that the groundwater of the city and the way it gets recharged in the sub-basin has been very badly affected. So the result is that there is no groundwater in the areas marked in red. And also all the water bodies in the city, the areas marked in blue, have become heavily polluted. So along with the low carbon, the other big issue we face is on what is called the blue agenda on how to sustainably manage water and how to also tackle the issue of building resilience with climate change when there is either too much or too little water. Next slide, please. So the key performance indicators, what I call the KPIs for developing country cities, are no different from what you would find in Taiwan or any other city in the more advanced countries. And these come into 6 categories: energy, transportation, water, connectivity, buildings, and public safety. So in a sense, these are exactly the kinds of issues which I'm sure your report, the Global Smart Solution Report, also talks about. And the interest of our cities is really on how to apply these KPIs within the context and of course using the digital data platforms which can help us track on a real-time basis what's going on. Next slide, please. So what we have are both the challenges of climate mitigation and climate adaptation. And so basically these are the two big challenges in the post-COVID era, just as they were before, except that COVID has brought us into a much clearer understanding of the importance of climate mitigation through good tracing of data and using of data analytics, especially with the big data availability now all over the world. So the green agenda is one which we are quite, I think all of us are familiar with, that is growing cities are major emitters of GHG generated through fossil fuels. So the idea of switching out of fossil fuels to more of low carbon development. But also equally important is the need to keep the green spaces, retain them. The example I gave of Hyderabad was one where you saw how the green spaces were being taken up by the built environment. But the most important part of the green agenda, which I think many of our city leaders are realizing, is that low carbon development also creates significant co-benefits in terms of improving the quality of life and the quality of air, particularly as you saw in Ulaanbaatar city, where affordable housing is important also to reduce air pollution. The blue agenda, on the other hand, what I have on the right side, is of vital importance because in order to build resilience, cities have to be much more cognizant of the hydrological cycle. And that is that if urban planning is not done properly, it affects the surface and groundwater flows, and this in turn creates a lot of problems. For those of you who may be knowing, a city like Jakarta, for example, has faced land subsidence because of too much of groundwater extraction. Now, water pollution further affects the regeneration capabilities of water bodies. And water risk through floods, droughts, and intense rainfall affects the quality of life and, of course, very much affects the hard-earned money people have put into the property, which gets destroyed with very little warning, which is likely to increase with climate change. Next slide, please. So, could you press again? So what we see here in operationalizing the circular economy as far as the blue agenda is concerned is also two other important factors: minimizing water risks and also minimizing the carbon footprint of water. Now, water risk requires the building of sponge cities to capture excess rainfall runoff and also to reuse wastewater so that the water doesn't pollute the environment, but rather can be reused, as Singapore has done so effectively. Now, minimizing the carbon footprint is also important because cities are generating a lot of waste, and many of those wastes could be valuable resources through the recycling using advanced methods of waste to energy conversion. So all these are areas where our cities are looking for support, help in terms of technologies, in terms of technical assistance, in terms of capacity building, and we very much welcome your engagement, just as we benefit a lot by what Seoul and Yokohama City are doing to our members in terms of providing support. Next slide, please. Now, the important thing is also to leverage the synergy between the green and the blue water agenda, because water has a large GHG footprint, partly because urban areas, a lot of water requires pumping. An average utility uses about 30% of the costs are because of energy costs. And this is very costly to the economy and society, particularly when the energy feedstock is based on fossil fuels. So the importance is that how do we create more recyclable resources? And for that, our cities are looking for green funds and looking for ways in which we could get the support of donors. And I see that in the audience, there are several important representatives from the European countries who do play a very important role in helping our cities figure out new solutions. So it also requires capacity building. It requires the use of the development of regulations of both surface water and groundwater. And so a lot of the good practices in your cities and countries are very much welcomed for application in our cities also. Next slide, please. And one of the interesting concepts, which is now becoming quite important, is the fact that there is a possibility of viability gap financing for the green and blue agendas. The idea here being that the investment costs for the kinds of technologies we're talking about are fairly high. And in terms of the investment costs, which is shown in the pink bar on the left side, the actual amount of cash flow, which if anyone's looking at a business opportunity in a green or blue agenda at the city level in one of our cities, the cash flow is not that high because on an average, our city has about 40% of people below the poverty line. However, there are several other benefits which are also very important for the city and the country. The benefit in terms of public health, particularly by reduction of air pollution and building of resilience. Then also the reduction of water risks, because if you improve the resilience of the city and reduce the risks of floods and droughts and so on, it also has a benefit to not only the city but to the whole national economy. So we can look at the yellow and the blue, light blue bars as the kind of financing which can be expected from the national government, from the public budget. And then on top of that, there is this huge amount of GHG savings when you do the right action, when right actions are taken in terms of reduction of the carbon footprint of the city, for which there is interest on the part of the global community to support, provided the city is able to make a good case and a credible case that it is reducing the GHGs in a systematic manner. So for us, in terms of capacity building, where we need the support is really to help us set up digital data platforms which can do the kind of measurements you see on the right side. And through that, the city can attract funding from the global organizations who are interested in financing, in green financing. Ulaanbaatar city, for example, has done that for affordable housing with the Green Climate Fund. We also are aware that there are several private sector and non-governmental organizations, including pension funds and others, who would be interested in financing investments, provided the GHG saving is properly measured and is credible. So for that also, there's a lot of technical assistance which is needed, and we look forward to any kind of help which we could get from any of you who are interested in helping us. Next slide, please. Now, this is my final slide. So what I'm suggesting here is that securing climate resilience financing is also possible through bond issue. And this is again an area where we're looking for possibilities of collaborating with the reinsurance companies, because if we are able to figure out how to reduce the risks in city by better urban planning, there are opportunities then to attract from the markets financing to help us solve these very complicated problems, which also require a lot of money. So with that, I come to the end of my presentation. I'd like to thank all of you for inviting me to your session and welcome any questions or comments you might have. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Vijay, for your inspirational speech. Please stay online because later we will have a group photo time. 接下来我们要来热烈欢迎的是 IGES 的组织执行长 Hideyuki Mori 为我们来致辞。Next, let's welcome the Executive Director of IGES, Hideyuki Mori, for opening remarks. Mr. Mori.
Kind introduction. Honorable Mayor of Taoyuan City, Mayor Chen Wen-chan, Deputy Chief Executive Dr. Lin, Gino, Vijay, distinguished guests, and participants. First of all, I'm very pleased to speak at the opening session of the Sustainable City Forum, which is very timely. I would like to congratulate the launching of the Global Smart Solution Report 2020, in which IGES was involved for review. Acceleration of transformative change at the city level has been strategically important for years, and innovative local experimentations on smart technologies, for example, at the city level, are critical to demonstrate feasibilities of various new approaches. Such attempts could act as a seed for local transformation, where associated benefits and outcomes are well shared and communicated. Smart technologies, social innovations, and other interventions are generated, which may lead to future policy developments. However, experimentations to promote local climate actions often face some challenges because many stakeholders are involved and their views are often different to fulfill the goals of an experimentation. In addition, a large bureaucracy could sometimes act as an inhibiting factor. The Global Smart Solution Report 2020 captures all those aspects, and we IGES are very happy to have contributed to reviewing case studies to promote urban sustainability transition. Let me share with you a couple of cases from Taiwan and Japan. Next slide, please. Okay. Next slide, please. Okay, good. Case studies of Taiwan cities indicate the importance of smart technologies and social innovations to support transformation of various urban services, such as energy use, green building, and wastewater management in a coordinated manner. Next slide, please. In E-Kizuna project in Saitama City, Japan, shows that the application of smart technologies is effective in improving accessibility and urban mobility for dispersed and aging local populations. Next slide, please. Okay. Taking this opportunity, let me share a couple of similar initiatives we IGES has been promoting for many years. The first initiative I'd like to share with you is the voluntary local review, in which several Japanese cities provide insightful information about their efforts to implement SDGs and to meet ambitious local climate targets, with the engagement and active participation of various local stakeholders. In this slide, 4 cases are highlighted. No, not yet. One slide back, yes. The one on top is the case from Shimokawa town in Hokkaido, which emphasizes importance of participatory forest management linked to economic revitalization. The one to the left in the second row is a case from Kitakyushu City. This is focusing upon renewable energy development, amongst other things. The case in the middle is from Hamamatsu City in central Japan, which features harmonization with nature. The one in the right is a case from Toyama City. This is a unique case where the local tram system is renovated as a key component of a compact city. Next slide, please. Next one. Okay. The second initiative I'd like to share with you is the SDG Frontrunner Cities Program of Asean. This provides various cases in which the climate and SDG integration is addressed in many different ways, considering the local, socio-cultural, and the other contextual situations. The slide I'm showing now is related to COVID-19. Therefore, let me briefly touch upon the implications of COVID-19 for local transformation and sustainability. This diagram is the framework we IGES has come up with to deal with COVID-19 from the sustainability point of view. Basically, this new 3R framework says that short-term response measures and mid-term recovery measures and long-term redesign measures should be promoted together to better deal with similar crises in the future. This is all the more important for cities because in all countries, cities are the areas most seriously affected by COVID-19. For your information, the online platform for Redesign 2020 launched at the beginning of this month, led by the Ministry of Environment Japan, supported by the United Nations, and managed by us IGES, is very much based upon this framework. To close, let me reiterate my congratulations to the launch of the Global Smart Solution Report 2020, and I wish you a fruitful and successful meeting today. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Mr. Mori, for your inspirational speech. Please stay online until the photo time. 接下来我们要欢迎的是欧洲复兴开发银行永续建设政策处长 Matthew Jordan Tank. Now let's welcome Director of Sustainable Infrastructure Policy and Project Preparation at EBRD, Matthew Jordan Tank, for our opening remarks.
Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon, good evening, all around the world. It's wonderful to be here with you representing EBRD. We'd like to thank all the organizers of the SCSE, to ICDI, ICLEI, CCCT, and all the other distinguished guests and panelists. Thank you for including us. I am going to just make a few opening remarks rather than going through all of the slides I prepared. I'll leave them with you for circulation. It's wonderful to see so many partners here, and a special thanks to our Taiwanese friends who are really long-standing partners of EBRD across many sectors, in particular cities and the urban environment. We finance over 4 billion euros per year in some 100 projects, individual projects from Morocco to Mongolia. Our approach to sustainable cities, I think, is we like to be holistic. We call them green cities, and you will hear a lot about these from our EBRD Green Cities approach from my colleague, Hirohito, later today. What we do there is we combine policy and project preparation with investments. We do that with green city action plans. We have almost 50 cities with us already in our program, and we want to get to 100 green city investments by the end of 2023. Now, a few words on sustainable cities for us in that holistic manner. I think this is arguably one of the most critical topics of the 21st century, and that's a big statement, but this is due to the mega trend towards urbanization and all of the global aspirations of people everywhere for a clean, high quality, safe, prosperous, inclusive urban environment. I think as progress towards the SDGs show, we're making progress, but we still have a long way to go. What do I mean now in terms of the goal of sustainable cities? I think we have to think deeply about this. We need to think firstly about how to decarbonize public services at the urban level and make them more resilient. We have to think of how to actually make connections between urban mobility, buildings, water treatment, water service, solid waste management with renewable energy sources at the local level, feeding in green energy into these services, decarbonize them. We call them crossover projects, and we do this by breaking down sector silos across typical sectors. Engineers working with economists, with policy experts, finance experts, bankers, etc., all for the benefit of our local clients. We need to promote economic inclusion, and this includes first and foremost women. Let's remember that societies function best when we use all of society's resources, all of its creativity, provide full and open economic opportunities for everyone, support for families, and the decision-making of how to organize cities really should bring everyone into the equation, into the discussion, a bottoms-up exercise, and that's what we do with our Green City Action Plans. Thirdly, deep sustainability at the city level for us integrates smart city technologies to improve reliability of service, lower operational costs, and do it in a transparent and honest manner. I think for us, very quickly, the key considerations are: does the application of a smart city approach pass what I call the public benefit test? Is it really being used to support something tangibly that you can measure for the benefit of people and users? Does it deliver the goods? Can we realistically implement this in this context with this institutional governance? How are data shared? Is it open source? Can the public sector still maintain some control and sharing of the data? How do you regulate the private sector for smart city providers? I think that's terribly important for local governments to keep and exercise regulatory control. And how do you break down all the municipal silos of the operators with the smart city providers? Finally, for sustainable cities, we need to bring along the private sector. These can be managed intelligently with public-private partnerships, management contracts, with proper regulation. We need the private sector. They have the technologies, they have the financial resources, they have the know-how, but we need to bring them in. And I think there, the multilateral development banks and international development agencies have a big role to play in delivering technical assistance effectively to train and build capacity. And I will just make a final note about blended finance solutions. We have wonderful donors who support us and have supported us for many years. I think what we're moving to now is the recognition that we need to be a bit more creative about how to blend in that support over the long term. So rather than just upfront capital grants for projects, we need to think about performance-based ways of supporting these projects over the longer term, using guarantee mechanisms, first loss mechanisms, et cetera. So we need to bring everyone together. We need to do it in a deeply sustainable manner. And let me end on a positive note. I think there's never been more international momentum behind the need for sustainable cities. We have a huge opportunity here to seize the moment and build a better future. We're happy to be a part of it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Matthew, for your inspiring speech. 最后呢，我们要来欢迎就是这次论坛的主办单位，我们的桃园市府代表邱俊明副秘书长来为我们致辞，让我们掌声欢迎。Let's welcome our Foreign Chairman Qiu Junming, Deputy Secretary General of Taoyuan City, to give us opening remarks.
President of ICDI, Mr. Lin Zhirun, Secretary General of ICLEI, Ms. Gino, Director of IGES, Mr. Mori, Secretary General of CityNet, Mr. Vijay, Director of EBRD, Mr. Matthew, dear colleagues, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
On behalf of the Mayor of Taoyuan, Mr. Zheng Wenchan, I'm delighted to welcome all of you to the main forum of 2020 Sustainable City Forum. First of all, we would like to say thank you to the workers on the coronavirus front lines. We are able to hold the Sustainable City Forum due to their great effort. At these difficult times, when people are facing climate change and COVID-19, sustainable city have also become the main agenda for governments. Since most of the population is leaving the city, the vital of sustainable development is to ensure that the environment, society, and the economic or population size can continue to grow while the living rights are not sacrificed for future population at the same time. This year, Taoyuan City collaborated with Smart City Summit and Expo and the ICDI to host the Sustainable City Forum. It reveals the city's determination of sustainable transformation. The Sustainable City Leading Forum in July. With the theme of green recovery in the post-pandemic era, share with audience how cities are facing COVID-19 and how governors actively promote green transformation and develop the experience of sustainable development. The issue of the 2020 Sustainable City Forum. Main forum is the extension from the Forum of July. In order to promote green economic transformation from cities, the forum will focus on the discussion of green economy, including factors such as economic investment, capital and infrastructure, employment and skills, and positive social and environmental influence. Therefore, we invite local government and the private sector to share their experience on formulating and implementing green economic policies. In the case of Taoyuan City, circular economy have been included in Taoyuan's green economic development in 2015 by Mayor Zheng Wen-Chan, and we are committed to the development of green energy. Lastly, on behalf of the Taoyuan government, welcome you all to join this event again, and I would like to wish the forum great success. Thank you.
Thank you very much. 众所皆知 ，COVID-19 呢造成了全世界很大的冲击。在这个后疫情的时代，我们如何能够透过各城市之间的合作，让这个弹性更加的加强，同时也能够达到联合国永续发展的目标。桃园市政府跟台湾智慧城市产业联盟，还有 CityNet 以及 IGES 国际气候发展智库 ICDI。ICLEI KCC 还有各个伙伴，我们今天要共同推动一个永续城市的一个发展倡议。Under the impact of COVID-19 crisis, green recovery as a response is the key to encouraging a sustained and resilient return to growth and development in the post-COVID-19 era. We are honored to have our global friends together here to launch the 2020 Sustainable City Initiative. 我们今天在各个合作伙伴的参与之下，以及见证之下，我们有5大的永续宣言，将在这边共同的来承诺。First, strengthen the partnership with global sustainable cities and the private sector. Second, share successful cases and practical experience in a sustainable city governance. Third, smart solution-oriented approach to facilitate the sustainable development. Fourth, sustain rising public awareness of sustainable city development and resilience. Fifth, support innovations to drive sustainable city development. 今天呢，我们很高兴，接下来一个很重要的仪式，我们要进行这5大宣言的签署。It's an honor for me here to present you the ceremony of signing the 2020 Sustainable City Initiative. 我们首先热烈的欢迎邱副秘书长成为我们的第一位代表桃园，也来留下永续宣言的签名，也象征我们将会以桃园为首，迈向永续未来的决心。Please welcome the Chairman 邱俊 Ming on behalf of Taoyuan City to sign the initiative and show Taoyuan City's determination to achieve sustainable development goals. 谢谢邱副秘书长，我们请站到右边。第二位，我们邀请台湾智慧城市联盟 SCSE 的李宗博经理上台，为我们来签署永续宣言。Let's welcome the manager of Taiwan Smart City Solutions Alliance to sign the initiative. 谢谢李经理，我们这边。紧接着，我们邀请国际气候发展智库 ICDI 林子伦理事长上台，为我们签署永续宣言。Let's welcome the representative of the ICDI to sign the initiative. 紧接着，我们要邀请 CityNet 的代表来签署永续宣言。Let's welcome the representative of CityNet to sign the initiative. ，Next is welcome the representative of IGES to sign the initiative. 我们也请 IGES 的代表来签署永续宣言。好，继续我们要邀请的呢是 ICLEI 的蔡婉田主任来上台签署永续宣言。Let's welcome the representative of ICLEI to sign the initiative. 贴纸你有吗？贴在手上，用手。接下来我们要欢迎亚洲矽谷的李博荣行政长来签署永续宣言。Let's welcome the Chief Administrator of Asia Silicon Valley Development Agency to sign the initiative. 那么我们今天也很荣幸邀请4部门的代表为我们签署永续宣言。We are also honored to invite you, the partner, sign the initiative. Welcome the Executive Director of ECCT, Mr. Bart Linson. 我们欢迎欧洲在台商务协会 ECCT 的林宜森常务理事为我们签署永续宣言。桃园的环保局长吕礼德局长，我们也欢迎您跟我们一起来签署永续宣言。Welcome the Director General of Department of Environmental Protection of Taoyuan City. 好的，我们现在所有的贵宾都已经签署完毕，那么我们再来要进行一个大合照，请我们在台上的贵宾伸出你的右手 ，Please show your right hand with your sticker. We will take a group photo to show our determination. 好，请掌握这珍贵的一刻。好，接下来我们还要请一些呢今天参与的贵宾，我们一同上台来，我们要拍摄一个大合照哦。所以呢，请唱到名的来宾，请您也一同来到台上来。Let's invite everyone gather to take a group photo. Let's welcome 法国在台协会谭宁志副主任 Deputy Director Mr. Gou Liong. Please welcome on the stage too. 法国格勒诺布尔大都会区的大使 Ambassador Pascal Viot, welcome, please on the stage. Thank you. 荷兰在台办事处高阶经济顾问 Senior Economic Advisor Dick. Oh, okay. 马来西亚友谊及贸易中心处长 Director Stan, please welcome. 丹麦商务办事处的徐素平资深商业顾问，请上台。瑞典办事处的孙欣怡商务顾问，也麻烦您。欧洲复兴开发银行台湾办事处的甘婉瑜经理。高雄市环保局副局长陈玲化副局长，欢迎您。嘉义市环保局的孙义纯科长，请一起到台前来。台中市环保局的苏桂玲股长。新竹县环保局的董佩玲技士。长川资讯郭成和董事长，郭董事长。台大运输中心陈雅文执行长。还有一位是台科大的郭武凤教授，也请您一起来拍照。
好，
资科局的陈局长，邀请您一起为我们合照。有点挤哦，请大家找空隙，不要被挡到喽。Now let's get together. We will have a group photo together. 大家都有吗？有。大家都有那个，我们就伸出右边的掌心，一起来拍。我们有这个 5S 的 sticker。我们在荧幕上跟我们远端连线的贵宾们，也跟我们一起合影。We have taken a photo together. Our honored guest online. 好了吗？他们有吗？好，在场的摄影朋友们，是不是都掌握到这珍贵的一刻了呢？好的，贵宾们手酸了，可以伸下来。谢谢我们热烈的掌声，感谢大家。我们现在请大家先回座，我们还要再拍一张是从台上往下拍的，但是大家可以先回座。Thank you. Please take a seat. We will take a photo from the stage. So. Now our cameraman will take a photo from the stage, so please everybody face the front side of the stage. "我们祝福永续城市线上高峰会议成功。我们举一个赞，好不好？伸出你的右手大拇指 ，give us a yes。OK， 谢谢 ，Thank you everyone。谢谢各位贵宾。那么我们接下来要请一个媒体联访的时间，我们邀请邱富密移步到外面，我们有一个 media zone。We will have an interview for the Mr. Joe. Please move to the media zone. 那么今年7月份的时候呢，我们举行了2020台湾会员城市大会暨永续城市论坛。那么当时也邀请到非常多的贵宾哦，包括了ICLEI的秘书长 Gino 刚才跟我们连线的，还有欧洲复兴开发银行的 Lin Ordi， 还有日本崎玉市的清水永仁市长，还有许多的各个城市的代表，非常的精彩。那么我们也拍摄了一个简单的短片，记录当时论坛的精彩情况。那么事实上，现在我们会有一个 short break，so everyone you can have a break or take a look of the video now, and then the next session will start in the 3:50. So please come back on time at 3:50, and move to the lobby. We have some dessert for you, and have a look or so. Thank you. Sorry, because we have the delay schedule, so the start time will delay to 4:10. 10 minutes break. Thank you.
剧情也让我们了解到更进一步的措施，还有改善回报系统是非常重要的一个课题。同时呢，我们也是为了要追踪预防措施，增进医疗系统的准备，还要面对疫情的韧性。
城市的永续发展，它的层面非常广，它包括了像 pollution abatement 污染减量，也包括了循环再利用，那也包括了怎么样去解决我们气候变迁的问题。
環境への取り組みとして、2009年から官民連携による次世代自動車の普及に取り組み、現在約150カ所の充電環境が整備され、プロジェクトでは国内の主要自動車メーカーを中心とする9社といい絆プロジェクト協定を締結し進めています。次に2011年に発生した東日本大震災を教訓として環境負荷軽減と災害に強いまちづくりを進めるため、次世代自動車スマートエネルギー特区の地域指定を受け、3つの重点プロジェクトに取り組んできました。
绿色城市计划，它是一个非常有组织性的计划。我们会请我们的顾问帮我们做分析。那这个台湾的 ICBF 其实也有参与其中，它涵盖的范围非常的宽广。它会帮我们定义 GCAP 的这个定义。那其中呢会是分成3个阶段。首先我们会有一个绿色城市的基准。这个城市应该要做哪些事情，然后他们会遇到哪一些环境相关的困难或者是挑战。我们有一个绿色城市的网站，所以如果你们想要知道更多的细节的话，其实是可以上我们网站去看它的一些资讯。那在基准之后呢，我们会制定一个行动计划。这个计划就是专为这个城市设计的，并且指出它在成为绿色城市需要经过哪些阶段。然后最后一个部分的话，就是谈到我们对症下药的投资。例如，事实上我们刚刚有讲到的绿色巴士这样子的计划。
桃园为什么要做生态物流城市？主要是因为我们就在机场所在地，桃园有2000多家的物流公司，几乎大部分的大的物流公司都在桃园。那这2000多家物流公司、物流业在桃园造成的影响，这当然是也非常大。所以我们希望未来能够对这些物流业在桃园的发展，从它就是它东西从机场下来到运送到仓库到消费者，沿路不管是交通，不管是它的包装，不管它的厂房，我们多做一些生态的一个是比较生态的一些做法。当然我们要具体一点，我们也提了5个示范计划，包括机场的物流园区，机场旁边有一个沙轮示范物流园区，这个现在刚开发好。我们整个园区里面全部都智慧化，里面的智慧交通、智慧的温控、智慧的环境监控等等，这些我们都做得相当程度先进的一些规划。我们在青埔就是我们高铁站周边很多的物流业，我们也把青埔定位为青埔的物流示范园区，还有在华雅科学园区旁边有中华邮政，这也是一个示范区。加上最重要，我们老街大溪老街现在大概是几乎是全国蛮知名的一个老街，可是老街造成的一个人流物流的交叉之间造成的乱象，这些问题也需要解决。所以我们提出了这5个亮点，希望能够在未来的2年里面有一些规范出来哈。刚才那个论坛啊，大家应该收获很多。那接下来就是我们的会员城市大会。那今年很高兴呢，桃园主动 我们蔡主任也很肯定我们来办这一场会员大会。
那在建构低碳永续家园的部分除了桃园市本身在106年我们就拿到了最高等级的一个银级认证，县市层级的一个认证以外，我们在区的部分我们的参与率是100%。
那调试部分当然从上一代我们新闻也可以知道，台北市的气温已经破100年的历史记录39.7度嘛那这样的温度凸显出台北市是目前全台湾热岛效应最严重的区域，所以我们如何在未来台北市如何在未来都市计划在相关的绿化及相关的我们现有的海绵城市以及田园城市的推动相关政策以外，如何再去透过这些都市的保水、透水、散热的这个措施，我想这可能就是未来台北市要面临的一个问题。
那所谓的智能社区里面，我们谈的是。
好的，接下来我们就要开始我们今天的第一场专题讲座了。我们要特别邀请到的是邱俊明副秘书长，要来担任我们这一场讲座的主席。行政院能源及减碳办公室林子伦副执行长将担任主持人。法国格勒诺布尔大都会区大使 Pascal Viot 将担任我们的这个共同语谈人，还有桃园市环保局吕礼德局长。我们现在请4位贵宾上台就座。Let's welcome you the first section. This first section we will introduce successful cases of sustainable city and green economy policies. Please welcome Chairman Cho, Moderator Lin Zilun, Speaker, Ambassador Pascal, please, and the Director General Liu Lide of Department of Environmental Protection of Taoyuan City.
开始了吗？
您主持就好了。不，在这里。今天很多的。
Ladies and gentlemen, there are a lot of brilliant friends, distinguished guests, and fellow colleagues from Taiwan City government. I believe that the opening in the previous session, we are brilliant. And thanks to the major players, organizers of this forum, and for this session, and also thanks for the executive from the executive yuan, Mr. Lin, who will chair this session. Thank you. Later, I will talk in Chinese and English all together.
Afternoon, this section, and this section 1 will dealing with the sustainable city and green economy policies. In this session, we invite leaders from local government and private sector to join this section and share their experience on how to promote and formulate their green economy policies. So we have several speakers, several are online, and also video recorded, and also they are shown in person. So it's a very interesting combination. I think we are fortunate in Taiwan we can still have this kind of a normal practicing for the conference and dealing with this important subject. So first I would like to introduce the first speaker is Christopher Ferrari, the president of Grenoble Alpes Metropolis from France. And we have a representative here to join our panel discussion. So we can have the video right now. Please.
Dear colleagues and friends from Taiwan and all around the world, as much as I would prefer to be with you, I'm very pleased to be virtually with you and to contribute to this special edition of the Smart City. Smart City Summit and Expo, and with this very particular moment, and I would like to thank the organizers for the invitation. So the Grenoble territory is aiming at being the alpine city of tomorrow. Both smart and sustainable, the smart city approach on our local scale dates back about 15 years. Because of populations and elected officials, sensitivity on the subject, it has always been deeply connected to the question of local and global transitions, in particular regarding air quality, decarbonation, and energy consumption. Grenoble-Alpes Métropole is a fairly young entity, barely 5 years old. It inherited mostly from the municipalities it regroups all the competencies and public services that are central to a territorial transformation strategy. The smart city approach aims at mobilizing intelligences and energies for the sustainable transformation of the territory by using the sharing economy as leverage for transition. While climate change consequences are happening twice as fast in our alpine territories than in other parts of the country, of the world, we want to renew our relationships with local resources through energy and ecological transition, as well as social and territorial cohesion. To be up to this challenge, it is really necessary to bend all the current curves and trends by the order of magnitude of 3 to 4. Whether we are talking about the number of thermal envelope renovation operations each year, the proportion of carpoolers, the production of renewable energies. Of course, we must work on sobriety, but we cannot avoid innovating to face up. Not only in technology, but also in the ways we do things, public policies, economical model, the support we provide to population. Our policies are aimed at nearly 450,000 residents, as well as more or less 250,000 residents of the neighboring territories, who often work or have activities in Grenoble. As such, all neighboring communities are associated with the definition of the project and its governance. Around 15 collaborating projects with which the community is directly associated are currently in progress, and around 30 are in preparation, not counting the project carried by the players themselves. Innovation is a collective process, and will not happen without the collaboration of all these actors. Grenoble metropolitan area has a long tradition of innovation, marked by major scientific projects, but also the birth of Planned Parenthood, or the creation of the first cultural center of science, techniques and industries. One of our great projects, which is called GREAT for Grenoble Alps Together, aims at reconciling technological and social innovation. It is the result of a very collaborating dynamic, bringing together nearly 100 stakeholders, whether institutions, economic and academic actors, or citizens and non-governmental organizations. It is based on the conviction that it is thanks to a massive diffusion of innovation that the transformation of the territory will be possible, through new forms of organization and more agile cooperation, mobilizing public and private actors alike. Through this collective work that the metropole is leading, we seek to make the territory more breathable, flexible, engaged, and livable. Sustainable development is the common thread of all metropolitan policies, and we want to base our attractiveness of our territory on quality of life. Air quality is a good example and is central in our approach. Air pollution is currently the cause of 100 deaths each year in our territory, and we do suffer from a bad reputation in this area. Improving air quality and dividing by 2 this mortality number is the objective of many of our policies. from very proactive policies benefiting bikers to a very efficient public heating network and a brand new heating plan using local wood only. From a broad plan for energy building renovations to financial support to help changing individual heating systems of vehicles. These actions, of course, benefit to our citizens' health, but they are also beneficial to the local economy and help fight energy precariousness. It is important not to lose the sense of action along the way, just as it is crucial to remember that technology alone provides only tools and never answers or solutions. To innovate is about all to question routines, habits for the actors as well for the users. It is also about making sure that no one is left behind. We have identified three main areas of applications to our approach. Mobility is 24% of carbon production and 29% of energy consumption. Any territorial transition, therefore, imperatively requires an ambitious approach in this area, all the more complex since acting on public transport is, of course, not enough, and it is also necessary to integrate the individual car, the fleets from companies, transport of goods and deliveries. Buildings and improving the balance between demand and energy productions are one of the cornerstones of any low-carbon strategy. The questions mobilize researchers and industrialists on topics such as smart grids, photovoltaic production, interseasonal storage, and green hydrogen. Air quality occupies a central place, as we said previously. Particularly in these fields of application, we are convinced of the need to engage in a transversal approach at three levels. First, data. Public and private data, personal or not, it is today at the heart of all the interventions. We must think about its protection, but also its dissemination for the good of the people and the territory. Second point, co-creativity. It is obvious the way of producing innovation will continue to change in order to better integrate all stakeholders beyond consumers. Funders, prescribers, and all third parties are now invited to join the process. And we must keep working to integrate other contributors such as artists, cultural field, and social workers. Thirdly, the question of support for change must itself be a subject of innovation. If no longer words to us afterwards how we are going to sell a project to the population. Designing it with term, it's the beginning of the solution. But we have to go further if we want to perpetuate, to scale up, to massify. This often requires being clear on how to fund change, on how to support actors, as well on how to evaluate and monitor. Here are some examples of emblematic and rather long-term local projects which started several years ago and which are still actually in work. Metro Energies. This is a typical example of the possible synergies at the scale of a territory. This project was born from the merging dynamics of an energy company, GEG, an equipment manufacturer, Schneider, and an information of data system specialist, Atos. It closely monitors a range of energy production and distribution system and enables users to manage their consumption more responsibly. The second example is Enernet District. In the wake of Metro Energy, The challenge here is to work in a mesh of a district or a territory and no longer a simple building. Both to improve the diagnostic and study phases, operation and maintenance of buildings, energy production and consumption balancing. InfoLab, working with the inhabitants to exploit the data produced by the community or its operators in order to meet their expectations on the crossroads of the public, private, and professional sectors. This concludes my presentation, and I would like to thank you once more for this invitation. Please receive my best regards, and I wish very strongly that every one of you is actually in good health. Thank you, and I hope to see you soon.
Thank you, Ferrari, from Grumble of France, to share with us today. It is our honor to have Pascal to have some comments and feedbacks. Again, welcome, Pascal.
For the introduction. I'm very happy to be here this afternoon with you to represent Global Alps, especially here in Taoyuan, because as you know, we are a sister city. We have been a sister city since 2018, so I'm very happy here. I won't do again a presentation about Global. I think our mayor and president, shares a lot of experience with the audience today. I just want to just comment that last slide that was shown at the end of the presentation, and you can see here. Yeah, that's the one, actually, yeah. It's interesting because we have been selected as a finalist by the European Commission to be the European Green Capital by 2022. And this is the final step, so it means that the award ceremony will occur, as you can see, October the 8th, and we hope that we'll be selected as the Green Capital in 2022. So this is, I think, a key example about how all those efforts are actually acknowledged by the European Commission. And I think this is like a role model for European cities, but also for cities around the world, like here in Asia and in Taiwan in particular. So I hope that we'll be selected, and this is really important. I think that we keep good relationship, of course, with Taiwan and cooperation with Taoyuan in particular. So thank you very much, and if you have any questions, of course, about Grenoble, I will be happy to answer questions. Thank you.
谢谢 Pascal 先生，等一下。
So thank you, Pascal, and also later on join us with the Q&A session later. And congratulates on being the Green Capital of 2022. Then next will come.
他是在线上还是好 Mr. Ido-san. Yeah, can you hear me? Yeah.
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, the floor is yours. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for joining us. Yeah.
Good morning and good afternoon, everyone. First of all, I would like to thank the organizers, the city of Taoyuan, and the partners and distinguished guests for including me in the event today. My name is Hideyuki Ito. I'm the program manager for Green City Action Plan at European Bank for Reconstruction and Development. Is the slide going up, by the way? Never mind. Okay. Thank you very much. So the next slide, please. So first of all, as Matthew explained earlier in a previous session, EBRD is a financial institution set up to promote transition to well-functioning market economy. And we are very much thankful for the cooperation with Taiwan Business EBRD Technical Operation Fund for many years. Next slide, please. And EBRD has been supporting cities for a number of years for different reasons. Because cities are the main emitters, main sources of greenhouse gas emissions, and also main causes of sources of energy consumption, while they are the the main driver for economic activity, despite it only occupies 1% of the global area. And we also expect urban population to increase over the coming decades. So it is absolutely important that we make our cities more environmentally sustainable. Next slide, please. When we worked with cities, we noticed that there were many planned policies already in place. However, we noticed not many of them are actually being implemented. At the same time, we saw investments which are not necessarily addressing the most important challenges the city is facing. So we wanted to find a way to connect planning and investment. Next slide, please. This is why EBRD started a program called EBRD Green Cities in 2016, which consists of 3 components. One is development of a plan called Green City Action Plan. Second, providing investment for infrastructure projects, which will improve environment and resilience for the city. And third, providing capacity building for city officials and key stakeholders so that they will be able to implement plans and investments. The next slide, please. So let me now explain the process of making a Green City Action Plan. It is a 12-month assignment with the first 6 months involving assessment of data using indicators and setting priorities. The remaining 6 months includes setting visions, objectives, and actions, and putting together into one document called the Green City Action Plan. Next slide, please. This is an example of the indicator assessment we conduct. The traffic light colors are used to help visualize and make it easier to understand some of the complex issues. And we use international standards, for example, WHO standards, to benchmark these indicators. Next slide, please. Once the indicator assessments are done, we set priorities and then develop 5-year actions, which could be investment or policy measures, set mid-term measurable targets, and also a long-term vision. Next slide, please. Stakeholder engagement is a very important part of this process. We discuss and involve city officials, but also NGOs, businesses, public agencies, universities, regional and national government, community groups, international organizations, and so on. This is very important because cities are shaped by different actors. For example, public transport is often run by public operators. So it's important that our approach and our policies are consistent and coordinated, and everyone's working towards a common goal to achieve a sustainable city. And this also helps identify any concerns from early stage in the planning stage. Next slide, please. In addition to workshops and webinars, we use online surveys and other digital tools to collect inputs from stakeholders, as well as the wide group of citizens sometimes. Next slide, please. This is the flow of our program. In order for a city to join EBRD Green Cities, they need to commit to what's called a trigger investment. Once trigger investment is committed with the EBRD, we then develop a Green City Action Plan, and the Green City Action Plan will identify a set of actions which could be investment, which could be policy measures, new regulations, could be initiatives such as awareness raising campaign, training, and organizational reforms, and so on, in order to address issues in a holistic manner. Let me give you an example from Sarajevo in Bosnia and Herzegovina, where we supported the development of the Green City Action Plan. the Green City Action Plan identified air pollution as a main priority, and we found out the urban transport is the main cause. So we invested in improving tram networks and trolley buses, and there's a plan to introduce a new policy measure to establish and expand car-free zones, pedestrian zones to make public transport a more attractive option for people's mobility. And also, there's a plan to start an awareness-raising campaign to change people's mindset about driving and promote the use of car sharing, cycling, and walking, and so on. Next slide, please. Another example is City of Sofia, where EBRD, together with Taiwan ICDS, provided a finance to the municipal enterprise to purchase new electric buses and charging stations. This is going to help the city achieve its goal to increase the share of public transport usage and to promote the cleaner vehicles. So those two goals are identified in the Green City Action Plan. Next slide, please. Another example is the city of Banja Luka in Bosnia and Herzegovina. We provided a finance to improve the district heating facility by introducing a new biomass boiler. This was implemented together with tariff reform and introducing a new management structure. But also this was conducted together with drone-based thermal imaging in order to identify any leakages in the pipes of the district heating network in order to improve energy efficiency and optimize investment and operation. Next slide, please. So what are the lessons that I learned from this program? First is it's important to set priorities. It's difficult to try to fix everything at once, so set priorities is very important and make sure plans are realistic in terms of financing and technical resource point of view. Second is make sure engage and collaborate with different stakeholders, which could be private companies, other government agencies, NGOs, because there are many actors influencing the city. So it's important that approaches are coordinated and we are all working towards the same goal, towards sustainable development. The third point is think about smart solutions, think about cross-sectoral projects, and think about social benefits. Smart and digital technologies are important because it can bring new solutions to a problem. Cross-sectoral projects is also very important because a solution for one issue could bring multiple benefits. For example, a park can be used as a bicycle lane, while it can be designed to prevent floods. Also, you can plant trees to improve air quality. The last, the social benefit is very important. For example, projects we've done for electric buses and trams are not only good for the environment, but it's also good for the social inclusion by giving access to people, because the city is at the end of the day made up of people, so it's important to address the social component. Next slide, please. Let me briefly explain some of our achievements of the program. We mobilized quite a lot of finance to improving sustainable development and sustainable infrastructure. And together with support from donors, we mobilized a lot of funds for policy activities, and we've done quite a lot to reduce the CO2 emissions. Next slide, please. Just briefly to explain that EBRD Green Cities are also contributing towards SDGs, in particular contribution towards sustainable cities, creating partnership, well-being, and innovation. Next slide, please. This is just to briefly explain some of the member cities. We have 43 members in our program, and about half of them have Green City Action Plan either completing or in the process of development. Next slide, please. And last but not least, I would like to thank our donors for their generous support for the development of Green City Action Plan and Green City Project, namely Taiwan Business EBRD Technical Cooperation Fund and Taiwan ICDS, and many other bilateral and multilateral donors for their support. Thank you very much, and this is the end of my presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Ito. You're a wonderful person.
感谢。
You know the financial institution play a very critical role in driving the sustainable city. And I was impressed by the Green City Action, and also strategically they sponsor and work with many cities in the world and among many interesting projects. So we probably will have a more discussion later. We'll join on the Q&A section. So Mr. Ito-san, please stay with us and after the simple presentation. So 接下来我们
Next, we have a representative from Canada to share with us with a pre-recorded video. Let us welcome Carlene Kahn to share with us from Canada.
Hello. My name is Carlisle Kahn. I'm the Acting Deputy General Manager at the City of Toronto Solid Waste Management Services Division. I'm sorry that I can't be with you today, but hopefully you're enjoying the event so far. The City of Toronto is honored to receive this award. It recognizes our work as we transition Toronto towards a circular economy and a zero waste future. I'm excited to accept this award on behalf of the City of Toronto and staff and share our circular journey and experience with you. As some of you may know, Toronto is the largest city in Canada and home to almost 3 million people. Waste management in a city as large as Toronto is very complex. The City of Toronto manages approximately 900,000 tons of waste per year. With a growing population, the challenging nature of waste, and the risk associated with our challenging climate, we must focus on reducing waste and maximizing resources. At the city, we are working towards the aspirational goal of a circular economy and zero waste future. Reaching these goals require innovative initiatives and us re-examining how programs and services can be delivered. It also requires us to apply a sustainable lens to all our activities and infrastructure assets. The City of Toronto Solid Waste Management Services Division is currently implementing a variety of initiatives to drive innovation and to growth in a circular economy. For example, we have created a dedicated unit to help find ways to incorporate circular economy principles into the program, our policies, processes, and procurement practices. We have developed an Adapt policy that outlines the social, economic, and environmental considerations that must be taken into account before the city will add materials to its waste diversion program. We are also conducting a study to help us better understand the existing level of circularity within the City of Toronto. We are also installing biogas upgrading equipment at one of our organics processing facilities. Here, the biogas will be converted into renewable natural gas that will be used to fuel our waste collection fleet, heat our city buildings, and generate a new revenue stream that can be used to be reinvested into future green infrastructure projects. Many of these initiatives are among the first of their kind in Canada and offer examples that can be modeled by other local governments across Canada who are looking to transition towards a circular economy. They can also be applied internationally. The City of Toronto is supportive of sharing our experiences, as we know other cities around the world are looking to transition towards a circular economy. They can also be applied internationally. Together, I believe we can develop, replicate, and scale effective policies and programs that will support cities around the world in transitioning to a circular economy and achieving inclusive, safe, resilient, and sustainable cities for everyone. If you're interested in learning more about the City of Toronto Circular Economy work, please visit us at toronto.ca/circular economy. I hope you enjoy the rest of the event, and thank you for your time.
好，谢谢加拿大的。
Okay, thank you, the representative from Toronto of Canada, to share with us briefly of their results and achievements. Next, let us welcome the representative from Taiwan City Government to share with us the experience from Taoyuan, and the Director General Liu has been a seasoned veteran in these regards, either in environmental issues and also in relevant academic backgrounds. So, with he in the Taoyuan City Government, will have more experiences to share.
Deputy Secretary General Zhou Junming and Mr. Lin Zilun, on behalf of the Department of the Environmental Protection Bureau of Taoyuan City, I would like to introduce Taoyuan City Government's key axes for promoting sustainable cities. My report is divided into 3 main parts: background introduction, policy sharing, and conclusion. Taoyuan City's low-carbon green city plan covers 3 important aspects. First, the implementation of the low-carbon city self-governance ordinance. The Taoyuan City Government, we have over 10 departments, and this low-carbon city self-government ordinance will be our core, so that we can promote the adaptation plan of our climate change programs. Our goals is to cover some of the parts like disasters prevention and 8 aspects of land use, codes, and many parts to reduce the greenhouse gas emission to 50% of 2005 levels by 2050. And this is my first sharing. And in the second part, in order to transform Taoyuan into a low-carbon city, we continue to develop green energy and green electricity. In 2018, Taoyuan generated over 600 million kilowatt hours of electricity. And we set up a green biomass center, and our electricity generation capacity over 80%. And this green energy is the largest in Taiwan. Other than green electricity, we also seeing a 22 times of increase in the solar power, and this is what we do in the green electricity. We provide not only green electricity, but also we want to do river remediation. We have many rivers in Taiwan, and the most important 2 rivers will be Nankan River and Laojie River. These 2 rivers, the watershed of these 2 rivers cover more than 1.2 million people in Taoyuan. The remediation of Laojie River basin we break the original concrete land and to build some of the facilities to maintain and to manage this Laoshi River, and we built a 22-kilometer bicycle route network. And in the 5 years working of our city mayor, he wants to have built more than 80% of the sewage treatment, so 55%. And in Taiwan, in Laojie upstream, there are more than 100,000 people live on the upstream, and so we do some treatment to change the water 7 days in a row, every 7 days. In Taoyuan, when we talk about Longtan Lake, it is very important because it covers 3,000 pounds of the in Taoyuan, and we want to make it much better than the situation right now. Then it is very important to mention that we recycling the industrial wastes. In Taiwan, we have 22 plants to deal with the industrial wastes, to recycle those wastes. And we recycle the water bottles and to make those water bottles into a very advanced clothing. And in 2019, we reuse of the waste aggregates for public works, and this has won the National Sustainable Development Awards. Then, for Taoyuan's low-carbon city, our vision is to engage all the citizens, and we want to include all the neighbors and all the villages to take part in this. And in Taoyuan, 100% of our villages come over to participate in the empowerment of the community. And then I want to share with you some of our policies. And I want to show you our process. So we partners with ICLEI to become the chair city of ICLEI's first international eco-logistics community, and we joined the Global Covenant of Mayors for Climate, Energy, and participates in the city's carbon disclosure project and receives the level A rating. And we submitted many successful cases to Cities 100 and was selected for publication. And I want to share our results to all of the people. During 2015 to 2019, we attended COP for 4 times and had presentations and exchanges with others. And we also participated in the ICLEI Global Forum on Urban Resilience and Adaptation, hoping to provide some of the contributions to energy saving and carbon emission. In conclusion, Taoyuan City will continue to implement its goal of sustainable development and consider carbon reduction as its first and foremost responsibility. We'll try to do our best. Thank you.
Thank you, Director General Liu. to share with us the efforts by Taiwan City government regarding sustainable development, and also from the bottom up, from the local borough to the international sharing. Thank you. And next, let us welcome the representative from Japan, Matsuyama City, to share with us as the last speaker before we enter the session for the Q&A. So let's play the last video of this session.
Northwestern Shikoku is Matsuyama City of Ehime Prefecture. Surrounded by the sea and mountains, the city spreads out around Matsuyama Castle with a population of around 510,000. On weekends, the city bustles with many tourists, but it faces a problem that is shared by other provincial cities. It's the aging and declining population. To overcome this problem, Matsuyama City will aim to transform itself into a sustainable city. The Matsuyama Smart City project is being implemented. Society 5.0 is a human-centric society, which will simultaneously achieve economic growth and solve social issues through a system that fuses cyberspace with physical space at an advanced level. Smart cities will provide comprehensive showcases for this initiative. The Ministry of Land, Infrastructure, Transport, and Tourism has designated 15 regions throughout the country in a preliminary smart city model project. Matsuyama City was one of them. New specific initiatives were launched and analyzed for results, bottlenecks, and other issues, and the information was shared. To drive this initiative forward, priority was placed on slow modes of mobility, such as walking and cycling, centered on central Matsuyama, to create a city where people can walk around. Let's take a look at the government, citizen, academia initiatives to create a next-generation city being implemented by the city, companies, universities, research institutes, and other organizations, centered on Urban Design Center Matsuyama, to create a next-generation city to ensure prosperous and convenient lives for people. All kinds of data can be found in cities. City Data Platform will be created for evidence-based urban planning through the measuring, gathering, and compiling of data on the city, transport behavior, human activities, and other information using IoT, AI, and 3D sensors. This data will be used to identify issues and come up with proposals for solutions. Advanced mathematical technologies, such as data analyses and simulations, will then be used to measure the effectiveness of policies. Once the results are visualized, they will be fed back to citizens and other stakeholders. Discussions will be held to allow data-driven urban planning with the participation of citizens, providing support to urban planning measures aimed at the future.
人が実際どういう行動をしたっていうのは、それを見てあげることで、例えば建物の建て方であったり、使われてない箇所をもうちょっと多く使ってもらったりとか、有効に使ってもらうっていう意味では、行動のデータっていうのは人をベースとした街づくりとしてはとても重要なものだと僕は思っています。
なんか今まで見れなかったものが可視化されるので、議論のきっかけにはなる。どのデータをどういうふうに見せていく、どういう議論をしていくか、民間の方それぞれ地権者だったり開発の人とかがどう街を変えていくかっていうのが重要なので、そこでどういう提案ができるかみたいなところが重要かなと思いました。
An initiative was launched to redesign Hanazono Machidori Street with the aim of turning it into a new symbol of the city where people can walk around as part of data-based urban planning. This street faced numerous issues, such as reducing the amount of automobile traffic, abandoned bicycles, and deterioration of the shopping arcade. It was transformed into its current state after 7 years of using a variety of tools, from models to microtraffic simulation, as well as effect verification and discussions on how to use spaces. Road allocation was reviewed to create an environment centered on people rather than cars, and natural materials were used to create a charming atmosphere. By creating spaces where local people could gather and meet, the street became a place of relaxation for the local residents.
触れ合いがあるそういうなんか体験ができればいいなと思いました。東京とかで体験できない経験だと思うので、このなんて街自体がちょっとこうゆったりしてますね。そういうところがいいところかなと思いました。
街づくりは単に合理的に進めればいいというものではなくて、やはり住民の方々や関係者が納得できるようなプロセスを経ることが重要であるというふうに考えています。今後は例えば環境であったり防災に関わるデータを収集しながら、交通以外のテーマにも取り組みを展開していければというふうに思っています。
Aiming to develop an even smarter city, a city that offers security by allowing visualization of what to do in emergencies and preparedness through tsunami simulations and other activities. A city offering seamless, safe mobility. A city capable of making effective use of resources, including agriculture and electricity. More data will be gathered to accelerate data-driven urban planning. Raising the value of the city for the citizens who carry the future of Matsuyama on their shoulders. We will aim to realize a sustainable society, starting with a city where people can walk around, which will grow with the people and offer a variety of people long-term security and comfort.
Thank you from the Japan representative to share with us the Matsuyama city. And now let's enter the session for Q&A session. It's less than 5 minutes though, but we have 2 more questions. Allow me to read it out. First of all, the question will be directed to ERBD. Have you ever encountered the issues of unable to repay the loaning by the ERBD? And how can you measure the performance of the carbon reduction by the lenders? And another question goes to Global. What are the greatest climate disaster challenge to the global, and what are the obstacles, the greatest obstacle in the climate adaptation? So perhaps let us allow the speakers to share with us. So there are more questions on not just on the floor but also online. So any questions? Maybe 1 or 2? We have the translation service available. If not, again, there are questions online. Questions goes to Taoyuan City Government. We have some measurements and measures for environmental protections in Taoyuan. So does the metro? Does the Taiwan Airport City employ recycled granulates to the road pavement projects? And we're also very curious about the questions regarding the data-driven city in Japan. What are the obstacles for the Japan cities in the phase of implementation of a data-driven city? So perhaps we can start with Pakel.
Yeah, so the question was about the climate disaster. So Grenoble is in mountainous area, is in the French Alps. So we are suffering quite a lot from that perspective, landslide, flooding, which is becoming quite severe, and it has been always, if you look at the history of that city in the past. But if you look at the economical side, the global warming has a big impact for us for tourism, because we are surrounded by mountains, and skiing is very important. So the ski resort in the European Alps are suffering a lot from the global warming. So that's put a lot of challenges for all the ski resorts in our city, around our city, and so on. But that's really one of the biggest challenge from economical standpoint, and how to work on those on this tourism, specific tourism area. So it's not really linked to Taiwan, except the mountain, because even here we have a lot of mountains, and we do have also some seismic risks as well, because of the Alps, a little bit less severe than here, but more on the climate change. I think this is important that we keep an eye on all those challenges, but we are working on what we can control, especially on our side, which is air quality, and this is really one of the key actions on our side.
Thank you so much for your response and react to that question. 接下来我们是不是先请
OK
两个问题哈，一个是我们这个邻。
Two questions. In our neighborhoods, we have more than 80% of villages joined our projects. When the communities joined our projects, those households has become low carbon. And many of the programs were contributed by our community partners. When they proposed very good programs, then we will include them. And in our villages, there are 2 villages, they have passed the best level of certificates, and 8 villages have passed silver level of certificate. So this actually encourages a lot of people to join in this sustainable city programs. And then for our renewable aggregates, every year we produced 600 to 700,000 aggregates and gravels, and we use those gravels to landfill, and we also use them for public roads. For example, like the airline city. So these are some of the examples. Thank you very much.
你的Ido上是不是他可以回答吗？他在场吗？
One last question from Ido-san.
现场那个翻译是不是有？要翻吗？
Hello. Yeah. Now it's Ido-san's. Can you?
Could you respond to questions?
The first question is, has EBRD ever entered a situation where a borrower could not repay a loan? And if so, how does EBRD deal with the issue? And the second question is that when judging the effectiveness of carbon reduction in the Green Action Plan promoted by the EBRD, how to set the carbon reduction standard?
It's a very, very good question. For the first one, I'm not fully involved in the banking activity. However, I believe there has been cases like that, but it's being dealt on a case-by basis to meet the conditions of the borrowers. Try to support the borrowers as much as possible, and try to understand the situation. And second question on the standard, the cities and the government we work with, they have different environmental standards, different capacities. So it's difficult. We always aim for higher environmental standards, but we need to take step by step to gradually improve the ambitions, and we try to support them where the capacity is lacking or needed. Does that answer the question?
you answered the first question, right? Yeah, 2, right? 有没有其他的问题？没有。
Any other questions?
没有。好，那我想我们时间的关系 ，Thank you. Thanks for respond to the questions. So 我想现在时间的
Due to the time limit, this session we have brilliant speakers from Grenoble, of France, and also Toronto from Canada, and also Japan, Taiwan City of Taiwan, on the regard of smart cities to share their practices and experiences. Again, a big round of applause to all these speakers online and offline. Thank you.
好，我是把这个交回司仪。
好的，那我们第一场的 section 就到这边先暂时告一个段落，我们还是一样会先休息10分钟。好，我们今天的第2场演讲即将开始。我们特别邀请到了国际气候发展智库赵公岳执行长来担任我们的主持人，法国在台协会戴宁志副主任，荷兰在台办事处 Diederik van der Stroom 高阶经济顾问，欧洲在台商务协会黎森常务理事，以及新北市环保局的李俊义主任担任我们这一场演讲的语坛人。我们现在请这5位贵宾上台。Ladies and gentlemen, the second section about to begin. Let's welcome our moderator Zhao Gongyue, the Executive Director of ICDI, Speaker Mr. Golion Dalvalle, Deputy Director of the French Office in Taipei, Mr. Diederik van der Stroom, Senior Economic Advisor of Netherlands Office, Taipei, Mr. Paul Linson, Executive Director of ECCT, and Director Li Junyi of Department of Environment Protection of New Taipei City.
Okay. The participants stay here, and also I would like to thank for our host city, Taoyuan City, and also for the session chair, Mr. Chou Junmin, our Deputy Secretary General here to support us. So for the second session here today, we would like to focus on how to bring the green economy to cities and through the PPP approaches. So we know that for public-private partnership actually is the key to bring the city move forward. And without the business model, without the enterprise, the city cannot really bring the green economy. So for this session today, it's our great pleasure that we invite the partners from European countries and also enterprise and also cities to share their experience. So for the first, I would like to invite the representative from France, the Deputy Director Dalvalle, to give his presentation.
Thank you. 邱副秘书长，女士们、先生们，各位。
Ladies and gentlemen, and friends on the internet.
To be rather efficient today, so I'm going to be needing to shorten a little bit my presentation. I had initially planned to start with a recollection of all of the challenges that we're facing through climate change and development in general in a sustainable manner, but I will try to make it short and efficient. Instead, just focusing on the fact that we see in the news events every day that tell us how much we should be acting today, but not be scared. We should be instead focused on action, and we should be going forward. Action at the UN level, action at the continental level, and for this there is an important dimension for all us European countries that are here on stage, which is the EU action, through which we are doing a lot, but I won't have time to delve on that today. Action at the national level, of course, and action at local level. And this, I believe, is more important for this, the forum that we are having today, because we are with Taoyuan City, and we want to see how is it that local actors can be playing and can be be engaging all of the actors that are there to work. The local cities and governments had been marginalized after World War II. It seemed that public policies were becoming so complicated, so technical, that you could not understand it when you were a mayor or when you were working at a local level. But today we know instead that no one can hold all of the competences and all of the skills together, and we need to be working together. When we say in the Sustainable Development Goals that Goal 17 is about partnerships, this really means this is not just a side effect, this is not just something politically correct. This is something that is important because we need all of the expertises that are in the room and that are in the different actors that are getting together. And this is where I believe public-private partnerships, because I was asked to focus specifically on that topic, can play an important role. I might be having a little bit of a large definition of the public-private partnerships. The main and initial one is any type of contract or cooperation that is being done between a public entity, a government, whether local or national, and a company. But I want to maybe have a bit of a larger vision and talk about as well working with every branches of civil society, including scientists and the citizens. We have seen that in the first session in several of the presentations that were made when all of the different cities that were talking before us were having an important dimension of their policies that was working together with the citizens that are involved, because we cannot drive policies that are important to combat climate change and to facilitate adaptation and mitigation if we are not working with the people who are first concerned about what are their exact perceived problems and how therefore can we manage change together. Because if we only enact policies from the top, it will not work. There are lots of people who will claim that citizens don't care today, that they find those topics too complicated. But if you look at the politics, it is interesting to see at the European level, the European colleagues will certainly confirm it for the European parliamentary elections that were held last year, or in my own country of France in the spring of this year in the municipal elections, you had a very strong wave of green elected politicians that came to power and that managed to vanquish, to beat out climate skeptic politicians, which shows that when you can present to the citizens, when you can present to your electorate sensible policies that are talking to their own needs, you can succeed and you don't need to be afraid. So let me take two examples maybe of two cities at the two ends of France that can give us different types of the ways that we can engage together with civil society in a larger way. The first one is particularly close to my heart because it is my home city of Rouen in Normandy, in the northwest of Paris, near the channel that is separating us with England. It is an innovative example, I believe, of organizing its own local climate change conference, complete with its own scientific assessment of the local cost of climate change and of the popular attitudes facing those challenges, which in a sense reflects the bottoms-up approach that we heard earlier on today by the representative of EBRD. Understanding that urgent ambition was necessary at the level of the metropolis of Rouen, which could not rely only on public measures. The metropolis has brought in every branch of civil society from different sectors, from companies to the branch representatives to social groupings, for a year-long discussion on separate thematic workshops of climate action. They managed to identify 18 different action coalitions that were identified, from solar panel projects to higher education actors, to the Rouen Harbor actors, to the Shop Owners Association. And together, in November 2018, they concluded their own Rouen Agreement for climate change, which is not at the same level, obviously, as the Paris Agreement, which has a universal dimension, but it is encompassing a whole list of sectoral individual commitments for every partner, which is where you show that you need to be working with everybody. Those direct actions were grouped into 9 strategic coalitions that were meant to generalize or to massify, I believe we heard the term earlier in the first session, to massify individual initiatives in fields from agriculture to housing to individual mobility, biodiversity, circular economy, and everything. That would be about the first aspect, how you create those partnerships to mobilize citizens and to mobilize every sector of society. The more maybe, the way we traditionally understand PPPs, of course, is more about the coalitions between the governments and the companies and the private sector specifically. And here, I believe the main reason we need to insist also on that useful tool is because it is at the local levels that PPPs can best help mobilize the joint know-how and the joint skills of several actors that are acting together. You have heard previously in the previous section from the mayor, the head of the metropolis, and from Pascal Viau about the example of Grenoble metropolis. Well, at the risk of hurting his own modesty, Pascal, I want to be emphasizing a few examples that come from that metropolis as well, as to how you can engage the know-how of the private sector into developing two interesting examples of PPPs that are relating to mobility and housing. The first example about PPPs for mobility is what we call the Highway Consortium, which was regarding green mobility using hydrogen. Together with the company Air Liquide, by the way, which is present in Taiwan ever since 1987, so it is a partner that Taiwanese societies can be working with. There are two clusters in France. There is Grenoble and the other cluster of innovation called Lyon in the nearby city of Lyon that have managed to pool together. They have assembled together the largest electric hydrogen fleet in Europe, which is today totaling 50 vehicles. That project was started in 2016, and to give you an idea statistically, since 2018, they have managed to have 350,000 kilometers driven with that electric hydrogen fleet, and more than 1,600 station recharges. This project is interesting is that it was really a pioneer in the whole European model. It was maybe the first hydrogen project for mobility at the time, and that it took three maybe essential factors to work. The first one was that it needed a political agreement at the highest level between the two clusters that were Lyon and Grenoble. It needed industry solutions, because it is not the mayors, it is not, with all due respect to Secretary General Chiu, it is not us at the administrative level who have the technical solutions to make it work. It needed as well the will that from this project you could develop into a whole ecosystem of innovative companies that, learning from the hydrogen mobility network, are managing to move forward and to come up with innovative solutions in the whole hydrogen field. So the project itself is not the end. The project is the start of a new form of innovation in the future. A second example in Grenoble is the Presqu'île housing project, which is aimed at reducing energy consumption in a new whole housing area of the city, reducing it by 30% below the current strictest EU rules. That was done by the creation of a biomass plant to feed power and heating for more than 20,000 housing units. That was done through the collection of recycling of rainwater and the installation of cooling islets and green rooftops. Such performance, again, needed a partnership between the municipal authorities and the developer, Bouygues Construction, because the developer is the only one to know the technologies that are needed, and together with citizen participation. I am already going far, so I need to be short. I want maybe to say that these examples that are coming from Europe should not seem like something that are unfeasible here, because actually the challenges between Taiwan and Europe are in many ways comparable. France has the longest littoral of all of the European Union, which means a lot of low height altitude areas that are susceptible to flooding. It also has the most islands, including tropical islands in all of the different oceans in the world. So we know the issues that Taiwan is facing, whether in terms of protecting endemic species, limited capacity for waste management, limited space for landfills, increasing occurrence of natural disasters and everything. So the types of expertises that are developed in Europe, even though it might not be so close to here, and even though it might look like a different culture, there are lots of things that we can learn from one another. And the private sector here in France is standing ready to be helping the Taiwanese municipalities that want to engage in this. Just two examples. The French banks, such as BNP Cardiff or Crédit Agricole, are today by far the largest green finance supporter of Taiwan's energy transition, whether in the solar and in the wind power industries. And as well, another example in Kaohsiung, the French company Alstom is currently building the phase 2 of the local light transport system, tramway, with 15 already vehicles that are in production with energy storage solutions inside. I could go on with other innovative solutions from SCSE, which is developing floating solar stations as well, which are particularly adapted to the lowland and humid areas that you have on the west coast of Taiwan. But for the sake of time, let me just say that my conclusion is for cities of the world to work with private sector. If we do it together, there is hope that we can help climate change. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for the very good speech by our Deputy Director Diwali. Actually, he brings three different very important concepts. The first one is for the sustainable city through the PPP approach. Actually, everyone matters, not only for the companies, but also every citizen matters. I think for that response to the IPCC SR 15, actually, we have to all of us work together to make the city sustainable. And also, he brought two cases. The first one is mobility, and mobility actually is very important as the Taoyuan city have the eco-mobility and also eco-logistic projects in Taoyuan city. That is the very good approach for city transformation. So while here I would like to also bring one new concept for all of us, that for the the Global Smart Solution Report next year, 2021, the new topic would be eco-mobility. Okay, and also for the housing that is close to people and how we can work together to make people more sustainable. Okay, so for the second speaker, I would like to introduce our senior representative from, I would say, Nathan. Yeah, because they correct the name, not Holland. Yeah, Nathan, right? Okay, so I would like to introduce Mr. Derek Van der Ron and for your presentation, please.
Thank you very much. Yes, thank you. For the next slide, please. The Netherlands and Taiwan are natural smart city partners. I would like to start with this conclusion in mind and then explain to you the Dutch approach to building smart cities, sustainable cities, the important role of public-private partnerships in this, and then end with a few examples of how this looks in the Netherlands. But first, next slide. An introduction of the Netherlands. The Netherlands is similar in size to Taiwan. If you put us in the world ranking, Taiwan is the 21st, the Netherlands 17th. But what's even more remarkable, I think, is that we are both really exporting economies, with exports amounting to 60% of our total GDP. Next slide. And from this, it comes that we have very strong economic ties. We are, the Netherlands is for trade currently Taiwan's 10th largest trading partner, from the EU the second, with almost 12 billion euros of total trade last year. And the picture here of the ASML machines are our largest export product to Taiwan. Next slide. Because we have more in similar with Taiwan, because we also have a similar population size and a popular mass, land mass, and this means that we actually also share the same high population density. In fact, Taiwan and the Netherlands are about the highest populated areas in the world. And from this, we kind of have I would say, same mindset about certain societal challenges, of which I want to show a few. Next slide. Climate change, this is in the Netherlands, and it shows that this is really urgent, necessary right now. Next slide. But also the transition to renewable energy, a big challenge which is on top of our agenda, and just as it is here in Taiwan, I'm very glad to see that actually today, the past few years, there has been a lot of cooperation between the Netherlands and Taiwan on building also offshore wind farms here in Taiwan. Next slide. Mobility. This is a picture of a Dutch highways during rush hour, and I think it really shows the inefficiency of our current highways. And this is really a challenge we have to overcome. Next slide. Dutch smart cities are sustainable cities using new technologies driven by smart society. This is the definition, I would say, is the Dutch definition of smart cities, because of course smart cities is a kind of broad concept, but it's really all about building sustainable cities using the newest, latest technologies, and including the citizens, smart society. And in order to do this, next slide, we have developed a smart city strategy in the Netherlands, together with the private sector. Over 40 companies joined, researchers, academics joined, the local municipalities joined, and our ministries. And together they came up with a strategy which consists of five major pillars, which are the requirements for a smart city. First and foremost, we need secure digital infrastructure. We need a 5G network, which is safe, to have autonomous vehicles, to have IoT devices talking to each other. The second, public-private partnerships will be on the next slide. Then we have new governance models. We need to include citizens. It doesn't need to be a top-down approach. It needs to be bottom-up as well. And of course, education and employability, because if we really move to a new economy, there will be a lot of people who will be out of a job. So there needs to be a lot of focus on re-educating people and really creating new jobs. Finally, regional cooperation refers to the different hubs we have identified in the Netherlands, which all have their own capabilities, their own fields of expertise. For example, the Eindhoven region is the mobility region. The next slide, please. Public-private partnerships. Here we see our Prime Minister together with the aldermen of the major cities in the Netherlands. And this picture kind of shows to me the changing role of the central government in this, because in the past it might have been a top-down planned approach, but now it's more a coordinator, more a facilitator, so to speak, for building these smart cities, implementing these smart new technologies. Actually, the cities are really the key actors in this, and they need to work together with the universities, academics, because they can form the bridge to the businesses which really have the scalable solutions, the smart solutions we want to implement as a benefit for our citizens. Finally, we attach a lot of importance for open innovation, but I would like to share two examples now. Next slide. Yes, here you see a car. Actually, it's a Peugeot car, a French car, but it's an electric vehicle, and it's not only an electric vehicle, it's also storage of energy, because the building you see next to it is in the city of Utrecht, in the Lombok's quarter, and on top of the building there are solar panels which get solar energy, and the solar energy is saved in the car, so outside the house. So the storage can drive around and also go to another building where the energy can also be used in another building. So it is two ways, from the car to the house and from the house to the car. But besides that, this is a very interesting, new, innovative technique. The real success here is on the regional cooperation which took place between the local city government, the energy company, and a French car company, civil society, because that's actually very important that it were the citizens living in this area who invested themselves in solar panels instead of other forms of energy, and who chose this car. And together they made this work, and this is actually a solution we are really now looking to scale up to other cities, and also if there's anybody interested here in Taiwan, this is a great project we could move forward. Next slide. This is a futuristic picture of how a hyperloop could look like. The future of transportation, perhaps. This is a very ambitious Dutch startup, Hard Hyperloop. They won a contest of Elon Musk before. And at the moment we're planning the first pilot in the Netherlands, and this again needs a public-private partnership, cooperation in order to get this done, because this is not only one startup, it is actually part of a larger cooperation including provincial government, city government, but also construction companies, and yeah, it's a complicated process, but very much worthwhile. So to conclude, my next slide, how can we work together? And this is an open question, but it is absolutely necessary that we work together. And I mentioned the French car a few times, but smart cities might be implemented locally, they have to, in order to do that, we have to really work internationally. And Taiwan has one of the strongest ICT sectors in the world. And therefore, I think we are very compatible to work together with Taiwan. And I look very much forward to hear from you. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. The very good presentation from Mr. Derek. Actually, I think for Nathan, we have similar, territory size, and for the very innovative culture from Nathan, we can learn. And also, I think for last year when I visit Amsterdam, I also see the vehicle to grid, and everyone become the energy generator can contribute. I think that also reply to the former speaker. Every citizen matters, actually. Okay, so for the third speaker, I would like to invite Mr. Barlison. He is the Executive Director of ECCT, and to share the approach how the business sector can contribute.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, let me stand up. I find that easier to talk. Could I have my presentation, please? So before, until we wait that the presentation is there, there's two things I got to tell you. So one is that I'm one of the directors of the ECCT, but that is my part-time job. My real job is for Anacon. That's an onshore wind company. So therefore, I'm going to present you with the case for onshore wind. What that has to do with beer, you will find out at the end. The other thing that I have to tell you, and I hope that this clip will work because I see it's going automatically. The other thing that I have to tell you is that actually not so long ago I participated in an event for the ECCT. We had this dinner where the mayor of Taoyuan, Jagannathan, was sitting next to me, and I'm not so good at those events. So I wasn't really sure what to say, so I mumbled something like, do you have a lot of industry in Taoyuan? Ooh, wrong question, because Taoyuan is the biggest the biggest contributor to industrial GDP in Taiwan, and I know now, and that brings me then to the topic of this, if the clip works, to this presentation. It's not working. So you're gonna change it for me? Okay, cool. There's a lot of slides, so you better practice your fingers. So how do we go from so what is the case for industrial use of onshore wind? Next slide, please. So I want to emphasize some of the positive aspects of onshore wind. So one of them is that it's clean. Next slide. There it is. So it's not PM 2.5, next. It's 0.0. Maybe it's working now. It's kind of seems to get it. It's kind of small. Actually, you might not know that one wind turbine is equal to 16,000 solar panels. So should you have a field, you could choose to equip that with solar panels. But if you have a wind turbine, then you would still have the land to grow on. It's actually quite quiet. I want to correct some of the misconceptions there and just give you the figures there. If you go at 100 meters from a turbine, then the sound level is 50 dB. 50 dB, you will ask me, how much is that? That's about the sound of your room air conditioner. If you go a bit further, 400 dB, and that's where you see where people are living there, 400 meters, then it's 40 dB, and that's about the sound level of your refrigerator. So that's what we're talking about. It's also safe, another misconception that I often see in Taiwan. So we've had a lot of typhoons, we have a lot of earthquakes, we had Haitang, we had Morakot, we had Sudalor, and our company, we have 233 turbines in operation already for almost 18 years. And in these 18 years, we never had a damage because of typhoons or earthquakes in all that time. So it's perfectly possible to build a safe and reliable wind turbine in Taiwan. It's also cheap. And I think that's probably the key factor for onshore wind, which I need to emphasize here. It's not 6 NT, it's not 5, it's not 4, it's not 3, it's 2. And actually 2 is what the cost is right now, and this cost is going down. So energy prices, if you consider renewables, this cost is going down. And the turbine that our company is currently working on, so that is currently in the R&D phase of our company, that has a target set by our management to reach a level of 0.5 NT dollar per kilowatt hour. That's very, very cheap if you consider that you're paying 3 NT to Thai Power. It's also local. You may have heard this before. Onshore wind, offshore wind, all these renewables are very good providers of jobs and employment opportunities. We do all the work with local people. The installation, the service and maintenance of our turbines are all done with our Taiwanese colleagues. So we make Taiwan great again. So then how about these green factories? I agree. Taiwan is a small country, just like the Netherlands. You have to consider what space you have. So I'm going to show you some pictures of the Netherlands. The first one is highways. An opportunity that's not yet used in Taiwan, and where I think we can work with local and central governments on that. Harbors, not done in Taiwan yet, definitely possible. You can see this as an example in the Netherlands as well. It's a harbor where we installed a lot of wind turbines. And the final one, my favorite one, is with industry. And what you see in this picture here actually is a wind turbine, or 4 wind turbines that were installed at Heineken in the Netherlands at their brewery. And 40% of their brewery, of the power of the brewery, is produced by these turbines. So I'm going to show you a small video, if it works, about that. Do we have sound? Otherwise I have to talk through it. Quality was not exactly as I expected it to be, but I think the point is clear. I would like to invite Taiwan authorities and the Taiwan industry to do something similar and start producing its own renewable energy, just as Heineken did here. So, cheers.
Thank you. Well, thank you for very excellent presentation from Mr. Balance. And actually, I quite agree with you that for wind power, for all the renewable power is very important. Actually, we are touring to this direction. And for the meeting today. Today is the carbon zero meeting, and we use local wind power for the meetings today. Okay, so for the last speaker, but not least, I would like to invite the director from New Taipei City, because for the Global Smart Solution Report this year, actually we have 19 cities around the world to contribute and are selected. And also we have cities from Malaysia, from Denmark, and Taipei City is also one of the selected experience sharing city. So I would like to invite Taipei City to share their experience. Please, the floor is yours.
大家好。
Ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor to be invited by Taiwan City Government to share our experiences on PPP from New Taipei City. Here, our topic is to flip New Taipei City. It's to flip the mindset of the public servants in New Taipei City. Because I'm from Environmental Protection Department of New Taipei City, so I will share on these regards and also with education applications. Next, on green economy, we want to achieve that from energy transition, community participation, and public-private partnership to improve energy efficiency and to achieve circular society and achieve a sustainable ecology. And in recent years, air quality has been a focus throughout the cities in Taiwan. Therefore, we promoted all coal power plants phase out by last year. And for coal power, they have achieved 10 S4 industries. Companies have used gas instead of fuels last year. And now we're also completing 4 coal power plants to phase out by December of this year. Not just in Taipei, but also New Taipei City, we regulate any high polluters to put our air quality under the threshold of their air quality. And our public works departments of New Taipei Cities, we have been actively and rapidly implement and replacing all the street lights across New Taipei City. And this is a photo from NASA of the US. You can see here the street lights of New Taipei City. There's a distinctive difference between before replacing and after replacing. And in addition to that, there are some sensors attached to the street lights as well. So once there's some street lights out of work, the sensor can detect it in real time and notify the service provider to replace the malfunction street lights. In addition to the hardware, we also promote this awareness of the citizens. Therefore, we have provided some power plants for education arena, like the Denggong Elementary School in Damshui and also community university. They can serve as the education services, education venue for elevating the awareness of our citizens in these regards. And we also work with PFI to replace all the LEDs. It's not just waiting for the state government to allocate resources to replace it step by step. So we can increase the energy efficiency on campus, for example. And starting from last year, our Secretary Department of New Taipei City also established the campus energy cloud to further advance the energy saving performance of new type of city on campus. So through such mechanism, we can save up to 5% of energy consumption per year. So this is amazing. And in addition to the public interest side, we can also reduce wastes generated and to share, and also to create more resources available to us. And because a city can create lots of wastes, so we can implement a recycling reward service system for our citizens to happily to store the wastes and to send it to our recycling service stations set up by our city government, so that we can create some cash flows thanks to the recycling resources and as a green funds to fund more public interest projects. Here, our government also implement a new type of city surplus food network. Previously, there are some imperfect produce. We will just toss it because of the imperfection of the produce. But now, with the service network, we can share these imperfect produce to some schools and to communities. So we can prepare foods with these ingredients for senior citizens and also for our younger generations, for example. So we can enjoy the food all together. So this is the network's purpose. In addition to that, there are some, again, the imperfect produce. It's not perfect, but it's still usable and useful. So we can sell it to surplus food restaurants or surplus food supermarkets for citizens to purchase, and can save up to almost 2,000 tons of food leftovers annually. In addition to that, for the river pollution, we can clean the water to create artificial wetlands. So in the future, if we want to reduce carbon emissions and reduce the heat, we can have some rooftop participatory farms, for example. This is a project by the city government. We have 3 modules. One is garden climber. The second is aquatic plant pool. And the third is thin layer plantation. So citizens can choose anyone from the options available to implement the participatory rooftop farm. So you can make up your rooftop at your discretion. You can form your group, design to get by yourself, and to put up together your module and to create a green belt in the air and on your rooftop. So that's basically it about the measures taken and implemented in new Taipei City government regarding education, environmental protection, and public works. Thank you.
Experience sharing from New Taipei City, actually through the citizen participation, through public-private engagement, I think for not only for the New Taipei City, but all the cities can move forward to the sustainable city. Okay, so due to the time limitation, we cannot continue for Q&A session for this session, but for participants and also the audience online, they can send their questions through our main pages. So I think that would be the closing for this session. And thank you for all the speakers. Let's give them a big hands, please. Okay, so I would like to invite the chair of this session, Mr. Cho Junmin, to come forward and give us the closing remarks. Thank you.
好，我想今天。
All right. Thanks all the ICDI, our organizer, to work with us to host this event. And also, we'd like to extend our appreciations to all the public sectors in Taiwan and the participants and representatives worldwide, city representatives, for your efforts to make it happen successfully. And today we talk about green economy after the COVID-19. And with the presentation today, I think you might learn something as well. And this is a great, successful learnings. Of course, we have a lot of technologies available, and we want to achieve a green, sustainable development. And also, eco-logistics is thriving in the duration of COVID-19. So sustainable and eco-logistics are definitely important directions in the future. And as and smart cities are one of the keys to the future development as well. So in the end of the forum today, I'd like to also remind you that we have a successful organization of the Smart City Summit and Expo. And through the participation of all of you, green cities, sustainable cities, online and offline, thank you for your participation. And thank you for having this wonderful organization. Thank you.
Now it's come to end of today's forum. Thank you for all of your participation. We would like to provide you some souvenirs, so please remember to bring back with you before you leave. And if you want to download our presentation file today, please leave your business card in the front desk. And if you parked the car in the parking lot, you can also, we have the degaussing service. You can also ask for our member. 谢谢，今天我们的2020永续线上论坛呢，今天就正式的圆满结束了。谢谢大家各位贵宾的参与。那么有租借口译机的贵宾，请您在离场的时候呢，要记得要归还哦。同时开车的贵宾，我们可以为您的这个停车卡做消磁，所以记得跟我们的工作人员来进行做消磁的动作。稍后如果贵宾您有要留下来用餐呢，有餐序的话，在大厅的右手边的平房西餐厅的南馆是我们今天的用餐的地方，我们有工作人员会为您来代位。没有参与餐序的贵宾，我们也是有餐点的，在报到处的地方，请您可以前往去领取。Thank you for all your participation today. Again, thank you, and today's forum is successful ending. Thank you so much. Wish you have a wonderful night. Goodbye.